Well, good afternoon, everyone, from here right in Ithaca, New York. My name is Nicholas Phillips, and our guest today, of course, needs no introduction. Thank you for tuning into our conversation today, telling your story for professional success, how to align your purpose and your paycheck. This is definitely going to be a good one. Our conversation today centers actually on you, the audience. We're constantly being asked to tell our stories like, what do you do? And tell me about yourself. Because of the pandemic, many of us have been asking ourselves similar questions, starting with, what's my purpose? And continuing with, does what I do for a living bring out the best version of me and myself? And how does what I earn through my paycheck enable me to fulfill my purpose? Now, clarity about your purpose can lead to the creation of a personal work story. With that baseline, that will ensure you to inspire, engage, activate employers, clients, partners, and investors, increasing the alignment of your purpose and your paycheck. We'll guide you through the Liz and Gonzi Transform ICAT coaching framework and the distinctive approach to storytelling. You'll learn how to use those frameworks to achieve greater clarity about your purpose and how to translate that understanding into a personal purpose statement to serve as the basis for your personal story. But this conversation isn't just between me and Liz here. We want you to be part of the conversation, following along and making this as interactive as possible. Now, this is being recorded and will be available at the same URL immediately following our conversation today. So please chat us your questions. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be taking your questions throughout and getting them answered accordingly. Now, part one, we'll take a look at me and Liz's story, and you can get an idea of how to tailor yours. Part two, we'll want you to have your LinkedIn profile ready, your resume, cover letter, all those storytelling tools handy so you can participate. But that's enough about me. Here's the main reason why we're all here. Liz Gonzi is an international executive coach and speaker and award-winning social entrepreneur and educator who helps purpose-driven leaders worldwide clarify, develop, and share their stories to increase their impact. As an international executive coach and public speaker through her firm, Liz Gonzi Transforms, she's enabled purpose-driven leaders the world over to define and tell their stories, accomplish their objectives, and align their paycheck with their purpose, something you'll hear a lot about today. Through the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship here at Cornell, she facilitates online courses for women entrepreneurs. Liz founded the International Social Impact Institute, which through initiatives with the King Bowdoin Foundation, Nelson Mandela University, Hunter College, the City University of New York and the City, the Arcus Foundation Resources Alliance, aims to amplify the voices of and increase opportunities for social impact leaders from historically marginalized communities around the globe. She also facilitates interactions among such leaders and assists in training more of them. Now, Liz earned a Master's of Management and Hospitality from Cornell University's Hotel Administration. Yes, she is a proud hotelie. She also earned her BS in Information Systems from Syracuse University's iSchool, just a little north from where we are here in Ithaca. She believes that when you share your story, you invite others to learn what makes you unique, and you inspire them to support you, thereby amplifying your voice and strengthening your personal brand. Liz, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'm so excited. Wow, it's been a long time coming. How long have we been planning this? A while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but I'm so psyched and I'm so glad that we chose today because it's exactly 1 year since my last keynote or my first keynote, which I built upon, and I'm so excited to share with everybody what's come since that, and really some of the developments. I think it can be really helpful to not only learn how to tell your story, but actually work on it. So this is a very highly interactive kind of presentation. So everybody who's joining us, thank you so much. Not only are they in the U.S. with us here, Nicholas, we also need to say good evening because we have quite a number of people joining us from the African continent and in Europe. So let's go ahead and move forward. So today, first part, the first hour, we're going to talk about purpose, right? Just what is purpose? We're going to speak a little bit about that. I'll then share a little bit my story and how I've been able to weave my purpose and really clarify my purpose throughout my career. Then I'll talk about how to clarify your purpose and your story. We'll then we'll look at how to craft and tell your story. I'll then do a consultation with Nicholas so that you can really get a sense for how to use the tool that I'm going to provide to you to work on your own story, go into some next steps. Because I teach, so I always give homework. Part two, the second hour, if you do choose to stay with us, and I really encourage you to do so, because this is where things get really, really interesting. We're going to talk about how you share your story through your digital storytelling ecosystem. So all that means is that, I'm going to show you how to when people Google you and they find results, I want to make sure that they're finding the results that really reflect what you believe to be your purpose, and then therefore that activates them to support you and to collaborate with you. The specific platform I'm going to emphasize is LinkedIn, not because they pay me, because they don't, but because it's actually a very, very important platform for anybody's digital storytelling ecosystem. And then we're going to do an activity where you're actually going to work on your story using my tool, and then we'll go into some next steps, like I said, homework. So how do you know if your paycheck is aligned with your purpose, right? Because I know a lot of people are like, wait, what does that mean? So I haven't necessarily used this language in the past with this, but this is something I've grappled with many times throughout my career. The first 10 years of my career, I worked in corporate America, and I got incredible experience. I worked in the tech space from the early 90s. I know I'm like kind of dating myself, but so when I worked in the corporate space, I really was learning a lot, and I was and I did very well financially. And in some instances, my purpose, I was getting some of my purpose, but it was really not, I really wasn't feeling it that much. It wasn't until actually I started my own business, and then I started teaching, that I started aligning those two, so that what I was doing was also enabling me to generate an income that to support myself, but also enabling me to really to help others in the way that I wanted to help others. And so I'm not suggesting that if you're in corporate that's not the place where you can, that your purpose, you won't be able to realize your purpose by just telling my specific story. So for you, I would say this: if you're one of those people who's like, oh, I make a lot of money but I'm miserable at what I do, or I really want to leave, or I don't want to get up every day, then there's a misalignment there, right? So whatever that may be. If on the flip side, you're like, I love what I'm doing, I'm making a difference in the world, and so on and so forth, but I'm broke all the time, I just don't know what to do. That's kind of the misalignment. You want to find that sweet spot where what you're really great at, what you're really passionate about, and what's the thing that's going to leave that print, or that imprint that you want to leave, is able to connect with how you're able to earn a living or generate income, or for your organization, or whatever it may be. So that's kind of how you know whether or not you have that alignment. Okay. And I can tell you, I've been in that position before. I'm going to make this interactive, as Nicholas said. We're going to do a lot of these. So let me explain Slido for those of you who are not familiar with this. You all are joining us on probably 5 different platforms. So I don't have the ability to actually see your questions and things like that, to see your responses. So I'm using this tool called Slido. You can either type in your browser slido.com and then hashtag J822, or you can go ahead and scan the QR code and then answer the question. So I want to understand, how closely aligned is your paycheck with your purpose? So go ahead and answer that for me, if you will. I'm not going to leave until I start seeing some answers come through. And so, do you feel like, you're like, yes, I'm great. Okay, we have something. Is it moderately aligned? So that's the moderately is there, fully misaligned. I don't know, because I don't know is also there, right? You don't always know. I've been in that situation myself, right? But so we have moderately, so the results kind of really reflect where I would imagine most of you would be. Mostly moderately aligned. There's a misalignment. And then very few on the fully, and the like. And you can keep answering these. This is going to be live for a while, so you'll be able to answer, but I'm going to have to move on. But I think it's important for us to establish this baseline, because that's the reason why you're here, right? That's what you're doing. But I wanted to just verify that, that, you have the moderate alignment. So you're kind of there, but you want to go all the way. So let me talk a little bit about why you're probably participating in this webinar, given that context. You're probably someone who's seeking some inspiration in your current role. So maybe COVID, COVID's just made things so challenging this last year. People haven't been able to work together, those who are used to working together in person, even at home. And so, and just trying to really to move online it's just been really challenging for certain people. And so a lot of folks are kind of need a little bit of inspiration and how to kind of be more effective in that current role. You might also be someone who's looking to reposition yourself, either because you're going through or transition, or you're about to go through transition. And so you're trying to figure out okay, what's that next thing I want to do? Then the third position you might be in is you're just, you started a new role and you want to make sure that you quickly make an impact and really bringing what you bring back best into this role to make sure that you can really do a terrific job, right? Because in any role that you take, you have 90 days to really make that impression, if not short of a period of time. So that's who you really are. There might be other folks, but this is pretty much who you folks must be. When we talk about aligning your purpose with your paycheck, a lot of people come to me and they'll say, well, I've been working in this kind of job, and I think probably if I want to, realize my purpose, I need to work for a nonprofit. And in some instances, I say, yeah, that's great. That could work. That's one place you can do that. But there's so many other places. And so what I put the slide together because I wanted to just help provide the full spectrum of options in terms of organization types that one might want to consider. So on the very left are those that are primarily purpose driven, and then on the right are the ones that are primarily profit driven. I won't go into the specific definitions, and I ask you to Google them if you're looking to learn a little bit more. But you've got nonprofits, which are mostly purpose driven. Then you've got social enterprises and B corporations that are a mixture of the two. So the purpose and profit, but they're definitely very heavy on that impact. And so you can either start one or you can work for one. And then you've got a traditional company. And a lot of people will say, well, in a company, how can I help? Well, companies do help. I mean, there are companies that are out there, changing people's lives, helping their lives in whatever capacity it might be. I just got vaccinated, so I'm really grateful for the vaccine that I got, right? So there is that piece that that we have to consider. But also, if you're in corporate, you may be working in one capacity, may not have the flexibility to go and start all over, but maybe you can actually realize your purpose by the organizations you support, because you have that sort of a salary, or the volunteer work that you can do through your company or through others. So you really you have options there. Then on the bottom are similar types of organizations, but these are ones that kind of fund sort of impact organizations. So you've got foundations, right? Like that actually would fund a nonprofit organization and a social enterprise. The same with venture philanthropy and impact investment firms. So if you can find some of those, that might be a place that you might want to sort of work, so that you're actually enabling the people who are working directly with causes and that type of thing to be able to fund the work that they're doing and to be able to scale it. And then, of course, on the corporate side, you've also you can always transition into corporate social responsibility or the corporate philanthropy arm of a company. So those are some of the options you might want to consider. Let me move on. Now that I've talked about that, I'm going to talk about my story. But before I get to that, I want to mention that I, in fact, have only worked for one nonprofit my whole career. So the rest of the time, I've either worked in corporates the first 10 years, and then the rest I've had my own firms, and I've also taught. So, so for me, I've been able to create impact outside of the traditional nonprofit organization model. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey and in how I've been able to fulfill my purpose by helping others connect their paycheck and their purpose. And let me be really clear. When I say paycheck, it's really to connote funds, but that paycheck could be helping organizations to raise funds, helping. So it's not necessarily just individuals, but I've been doing this for a very long time. If I had a firm called Amazing Taste that I started in 2001 after leaving a consulting firm. I ran it till 2014, and within that organization, we eventually turned into an organization that helped a company that helped nonprofit organizations to raise money and through events and online. And so the example I have here, the pink tie ball in 2007, it actually was a ball that we had, an event that had about 1,500 people, that we repositioned as a green ball, as one of the first ones that were out there. So we integrated a lot of sustainability elements so that they could really show how much they were tied to environment, because people talked about how environmental issues are connected to cancer, but that's a whole other issue. And we also brought them online so that they could tell their story more efficiently and inexpensively when a lot of organizations weren't able to do so. Another organization we work with was in Communities in Schools in New Jersey, and we actually put together a fundraiser with the New York Giants, and the New York Giants actually underwrote it, and we had at the Giants stadium in the Stadium Club, and we had all football players and all that there. But so in that, we're able to really connect them to new funding sources, new supporters, and help them to tell their story through this event. At New York University, where I started teaching in 2009, I still am today, and I'm adjunct assistant professor of fundraising. I taught countless nonprofit organizations from around the world how to tell their stories online to their various supporters, but specifically their funders. And then in 2010, I had an article that was written in Cornell Ezra magazine about how I help nonprofit organizations to think like entrepreneurs, right? So that they can really tell their stories in a way that can be much more compelling to those they're trying to connect with. And then down here in 2011, I had an opportunity through my church to present this talk. It was the first time I actually talked about online sort of engagement for individuals for a high school in New Jersey of students who were about to apply for university, making sure that they didn't make the mistakes, or at least were able to erase whatever mistakes they made online. So that's when I really started talking about the kind of digital footprints. And in from 2011 to 2013, my company had the honor of working on what at the time the president of Cornell University, David Skorton, indicated he felt was actually the event in the Cornell calendar. And so we repositioned it to really help scale funding for scholarships and so on and so forth. So that was something we worked on. And then ultimately, I had an opportunity in 2013 to do my TEDx Cornell U talk, where I spoke about an experience I had volunteering, living in an ashram, not in India, I didn't go all the way to India, but in the Catskills, and really how I used that opportunity to really go through a lot of challenging situations I had around like divorce and business and so on and so forth. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of reset, as I knew that I was about to prepare for something. I didn't know what it was, but I gave myself that period of time to really think. And so I gave that talk, hoping that I would inspire other people who may be in a similar situation to really take the time to really take stock of, what their life has been about, what it is that they really want to accomplish moving forward. Because while I've been able to see a through line here, I can tell you that, there've been times where I wasn't really clear to me what was going on. And so it's really great to be able to have people or sources that can help you to really sort of process through all of these different challenges in the transition points in your life. Fast forward to 2014, I was hired by a South African nonprofit organization, and I was hired to be their turnaround CEO for their U.S. and North America arm. And I share this particular image with you. This is actually a yearbook that we created on behalf of one of our major donors who funded a camp for our kids in South Africa. That was just amazing. And I took she and her husband to South Africa to actually meet the students and the young people and to experience the camp. And they took like thousands of photos and asked us to create this yearbook so that the young people would have an opportunity to relive the experience and the fun and what they learned from this. So that was really a way for us to help this partner of ours, actually she was also a board member of ours, to be able to share this experience and the story. Fast forward to last year, I started facilitating courses in the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship. Hello to all the 50,000 women who are part of our program. It's such a phenomenal program. If it ever opens up and there are new registrations, please go ahead and join. But I've not only had the opportunity to facilitate courses where I met some really incredible women, I also was asked to be one of two people who helped to bring in new facilitators this past year. And we also brought them on board and trained them and oriented them. So this is just an example of something we put together. But through this, we're really using this tool to be able to help them understand what the Institute is all about, to understand what eCornell is about, understand what the women who go through our program are all about, so that they can support them more effectively. Fast forward to 1 year ago, many of you have seen this presentation. I had an opportunity to speak about how you could really work on your personal brand. And I created that presentation in the midst of what was going on with a lot of people it was just a sort of COVID was really taking a huge toll on people. And I wanted to just kind of provide some tools and understanding of how people could really come out of what they were experiencing at the time. Also through Liz and Gonzi Transforms, I've been able to do training for a lot of different organizations. And so Candid, which maybe many of you may know through its former name, which was Foundation Center, Foundation Center and GuideStar merged, and they basically are like the largest kind of repository of information about the social sector. And in fact, their CEO, their president refers to them as being sort of like the LexisNexis, but for the social impact space. And I've done a lot of webinars for them on digital storytelling for nonprofit organizations. Through the International Social Impact Institute that I founded last year, had an opportunity earlier this year for us to bring a team together to go ahead and do a global branding and resource mobilization or fundraising executive education program for Nelson Mandela University, the only university in the world that will ever have this name. So helping them to understand how they could fully capitalize on this name to be able to raise funds for scholarships for all the research they're doing. They're doing incredible research and just getting some more students through. Coming soon, I think next month early, I just wrote an article for the Nonprofit Times, and the title is 5 Best Practices to Engage and Activate Supporters on LinkedIn, and this is for nonprofits. So for those of you who are interested, you can visit my website, lizinganzi.com, and you'll be able to see the article when it comes out, or if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, I'll probably be sharing it. So that's that. That's the story visually, and I've given to you. But now I want to start taking you through my storytelling framework. So I've set this up deliberately this way because the icons actually represent the framework. So there's problem, solution, impact, ask. So, I am an international speaker. I'll just quickly go through this because you've already heard me, who helps people and organizations clarify their purpose, develop and share their stories, increase their impact by more effectively activating their stakeholders, right? And to do so, I draw upon my experience as a seasoned educator, thought leader, serial entrepreneur, turnaround CEO of an international nonprofit, including, now this is my special sauce, right? So that's my experience, but this is my special sauce, is my real understanding of how interconnected we are as people. And so everything I do when I work with my clients, anybody, I'm always looking about connection and helping people to understand you can do a lot more, you can accomplish a lot more as a community, and understanding how to work with other people. And so that's a very important part of what I do and how I work with people and how I do my work. And then I have excellent recall because I pay attention, and I actually pay attention to detail, and I listen very, very carefully. And then I have a passion for making a difference in my life. So that's really what my special sauce is, right? I've got the experience, but this is really what I'm bringing that's personally just Liz. I also believe that by clarifying your purpose and sharing your story, you help others discover what you uniquely bring into this world and inspire them to collaborate with you. And so to all of you, I'm speaking to you, I tailor this to you, I'm asking that you actively participate in this webinar so that I can make it a very impactful experience for you. All right, so that, like I told you, is my storytelling framework, and you use it to create your personal purpose statement, which, in companies would be like the equivalent of like a mission statement. And that becomes the basis of your story that you then are able to integrate into like your resume, into your LinkedIn profile, into, when you're meeting people, things like that. So that's what this is really. So I'm going to take you through it in greater detail later, but, you talk about, for me, I was sharing with you the problem. So what I saw for my stakeholder, in this case, my stakeholder is you're my audience, the solution that I provide. And then, so I talked about how I uniquely solve my stakeholder's problem. And I talked a little bit about the fact that, I have the experience and so on and so forth, so that I can bring to really kind of coaching and teaching and speaking and so on and so forth. And then the impact, why my solution matters to my stakeholder and their stakeholders. It's really about, I help people to be able to tell their story so that then they can go out and make a greater difference in the world. And then, I asked you to go ahead and actively participate this as a result of hearing my story. So once you craft your story, and we're going to do that with Nicholas, then you go in, then you have an ecosystem, a digital storytelling ecosystem. Now, I do digital because I do a lot of digital, but this could be also in person. But at the core of this would be your LinkedIn profile, because most people, when you search their name, the number one search result will be their LinkedIn profile. So it's really important to know that. So for me, it's my LinkedIn profile, and then I've got 2 websites that you can find find my information. That's kind of like that's kind of like your mothership. That's like your hub. All of these are sort of different sort of spokes, or they're different nodes that also you can tell your story. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have each one of these, and I'll show this in the context for you. But for me, so if you see the things that the recognitions I receive, right? I talked about having received the teaching award I received a teaching excellence award from NYU last month. That really reinforces what I told you about me, right? What I speak about anytime I appear anywhere, I make a decision about whether or not I'm going to do it based on what I believe is my purpose, and whether or not that participating in that actually supports my story. Any content that I generate, any interviews I give, again, they need to be connected to my story, and I share my story through them. Where I volunteer, what I'm sharing in terms of content on my social media, even my email signature, again, is telling my story. When I'm in a meeting, if I'm participating in something, you're going to learn about what I do and even what I'm sharing, and so on and so forth. If you Google me, and then just the fact that I send thank you notes and how I do that. So it really reinforces that for the people I communicate with. So now I want to talk about how to clarify your purpose and your story. Here we have another slide up. So I want to ask you, so when I was talking about having, trying to create that alignment between your purpose and your paycheck, where do you think that process begins for you? Or where is it that you speak to your boss? Would you tell your boss to shove it and quit? I just did that because I wanted to laugh a little bit because you want to be polite. Is it you speak to a trusted advisor? Some people may pray, others, might be read an inspiring book. So where do you go? Where do you go? Where do you begin when you're trying to create that alignment? You're starting that alignment. Okay, so prayer, yeah. I've done all of these. Now I haven't told my boss to shove it, but I've done all the others. And read an inspiring book, absolutely. I've done that too. I also went to an ashram, so that could be it. But it's important that we give ourselves this time to really think things through, to begin that process of really getting clear and closer to where we're trying to ultimately get. So I'll keep the Slido going, and you'll be able to still answer, but I need to continue going. But thank you so much for answering, and see that 344 of you answered. That's amazing. Okay, so speak to a trusted advisor. Good. That means that you have someone in your network, someone in your, whether it's a friend or a mentor or whoever it may be, that you can go to. I have a lot of few trusted advisors, including my awesome partner, Stuart, and my awesome mom, who's joining us from Uganda. Hi. And then I have a couple of friends, but yeah, do that prayer. Okay, let's continue. But let me share with you my Liz Nganzi Transforms ICAP framework, which is Inspire, Connect, Activate, and Transform. And it's really this is the Reflect to Step Forward coaching methodology. And I'm going to lay it out for you in broad terms, just so that it's a process you can probably do on your own. But if this is how I work with my clients, whether it's something that they need to do in just maybe 4 sessions, or they want to do it over months, depending on where they are in the process. That's what we do. But you want to start at kind of getting that inspiration we're talking about. And really, part of it is speaking to a trusted advisor. It's getting someone who can help you, but it's also going back and really having an opportunity to look at, like, what did I create? I created that. How many times I always focus, or I've been a person who's focused on the things that aren't going right, as I'm sure many people do, but there's so many things that go right? There's so many things that work out, or so many things that we create. And it's important for us to ground ourselves in that, because that shows you, first of all, what you've been doing, what you're great at, where your strengths are, what you're excited about. That's what you should that's really where you're starting to really see where your purpose is. Also, you want to look at, like, what do people ask you for? My mom always says, when I was in high school, people always used to call me on the phone, because that was when you had to, you had like one phone in the house. They would always call to get advice from me. So I'm that person who people used to, and I just didn't remember that. But it's just something that, you can find that sort of through line if you do that introspection, and also just kind of ground yourself there. It's also important to see, like, what are some of the opportunities that you've been thinking about that are kind of interesting? Have you been trying to start a business, or do you have a side business and you're like, maybe I could, scale it? Or is there a hobby you have, or a specific, you want to travel? Like, what are those things that you've been kind of putting off that could help you? And also, but then what are some of the constraints you have to overcome to pursue them? Because it might be that, financially, you just can't go ahead and start a whole new thing or completely shift your life. So if that's a constraint that at least gets the process for you to get clear about, what is my purpose? What is it I'm going to do? What's my story going to be? And how am I going to move forward in the world? The next step, and there's on a broad level, is then you would create your personal purpose statement. Create goals and things like that, but that's just focus on the personal purpose statement, which is then your story. And then you look at your digital storytelling ecosystem for cohesion with your story. So let's say if you decide that you want to start a business, you go ahead and do that. You say that you wanted to go ahead and you want to start a business, then that means that you need to really be putting your story in places that are going to help you attract the business that you want. Or if you say that you're trying to start a nonprofit organization, then you need to become a part of those conversations, and you need to be seen as an expert in whatever it is that you want to pursue. So understanding where you need to put your story, this new story that you have, that will help you to meet your objectives. Then you want to integrate it into your digital storytelling ecosystem, like I said, and then you create a stakeholder engagement action plan. So who is it that you're going to try to communicate the story to? Like, let's say if you're looking for a job, what are the top 5, 10, or whatever companies that you need to reach out to, or who you need to get connected to, so that you can start working in that, because you need to get moving. Execute your plan. And a couple of things that are really important here. You got to evaluate results. We all know this. In management, anywhere, you must always evaluate results and recalibrate if things aren't working exactly to your liking, but also celebrate those successes you get, because you might get a lot of, I've been in the business of sales, I've been in fundraising, I've been all that. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of no's that you can get, but you need to keep moving forward and celebrate when you get those yeses. So that's important. But then also consistent with what I said earlier about my understanding about how important it is for people to understand their interconnection to others, right? Or in Southern Africa, there's a term called Ubuntu, understanding that we're all interconnected. It's important for you to know to pay it forward, because having social capital really helps a lot in the world. Because if you have social capital, if you have people that you're working with, you helped, and so on and so forth, and I'm going to put it in what's in it for you, the more people you help to accomplish what they want to accomplish, the more people will be there to help support you with what you're doing, right? And so you're not always going to be the person who's having to start cold calling and so on and so forth. You'll have a network of people who can support you. So it's important to get that. All right, so let me move on from that. But that's the very, very top line kind of process that you can go through. Let's talk about how to craft and share your story. And so let's first think about, what are you trying to accomplish by telling your story? So you're here today because you're trying to do something. So what is it that you're trying to accomplish? If we're going to craft your story today, what do you want? Are you looking for a new job? Are you looking for are you looking to go back to school? Are you looking for to start a business, a nonprofit? Like, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you looking for funding? Like, because you're going to have to think about, like, you're going to need to know what you're trying to accomplish by telling your story, and then you're going to have to figure out who it is that you want to raise. I get it. Secure a job. I get it. You want to do that, because then if you understand where you're trying to get, then you understand who you need to speak to do that, and then what you need to tell them. Then that's how it's going to help you a lot. So career pivot, finding a new, better job, promotion, advancement, growing my business, create a living legacy that will outlive me, which is great. There are a lot that's wonderful. Really, really wonderful. Moving into the coaching space, bigger impact, starting new business, inspire people to follow me, career progression, find clients for my business. I understand that very well. New job continuity. Okay, change job, more impactful organization. Okay, relocate to a different area, strengthen personal branding and standing. All right, these all make a lot of sense. Okay, so since we know that that's what you're trying to do, you can continue answering, and we're going to compile these later. So for all of you who actually, when you have access to my storytelling tool, all of you who submit your story, I will be able to send you the email with my presentation with all of the Slidos integrated with the responses, so you can get a sense for sort of where everybody was. Fantastic. Okay, let's keep moving. So I showed this to you before, but now I'm going to show it to you in your context. So I said, understand where you're trying to go, like what your objective is in telling your story. Then you've got that problem, the solution, the impact, and ask, and I'm going to break it down. Then you've also got to know who your stakeholders are. So your stakeholders could be clients, they could be students, they could be members, if you have an association, they could be your employers, employees, or partners, right? And they run the gamut. But that's, so you can think about the stakeholder type and maybe even the specific stakeholder. So you choose your specific stakeholder, and then we'll go into breaking it down. So what's the problem? So you state the problem. What is a key problem you can solve for that stakeholder, that person so is it your boss, right? So you're trying to I saw someone said they're looking for a raise. Okay, what's a problem that you solve for that stakeholder, or even a new problem you can solve for them, so that, you're even showing greater value to them, right? And this is important to understand because people are always about what's in it for me, right? A lot of times we've been taught to communicate in bullet points. I know these are bullet points, but in terms of what our job description says we do. But it's about solving. You're in the business of solving a problem for your employer or for your client or whoever it may be. So if you understand that, you can key in. That's going to be helpful. And I'm going to show you how that looks when I work with Nicholas. Next, you want to talk about the solution. How do you uniquely solve that stakeholder's problem through your role, like what you do and how you do it, and what's your special sauce? And I shared that a little bit when I shared my story, and Nicholas is going to share with us his, right? The next thing is you want to talk about impact, and there are two levels of impact, right? So why does your solution matter to that stakeholder? Because ultimately, if you can help your stakeholder to address that problem that they have, and it helps them to be more profitable as a company, or to be able to impact more lives in the world, or whatever it may be, that's something that you're doing. That's a solution, why it would matter for them. But you also want to understand how your solution can affect their stakeholders, because if you can communicate why this is important, or what you do is important, will help your stakeholders, then you're actually really making yourself super, super valuable to them, because that's ultimately who they're thinking about. Okay. And then you want to talk about what actions you want that stakeholder to take. You got to always ask for what you want. Don't go doing a great job of telling how awesome you are and all this stuff and not make an ask. Really, really key to do that. So those are the 4 basic points that or sort of areas that you want to cover in your story. Then eventually you want to, go ahead, and once you've crafted that story, you want to start testing out, your LinkedIn profile, and you tweak this. Let me tell you, I tweak my stuff all the time. So it's not like you do it, it's static. I think someone asked me when I was prepping for this. So, so if I create my LinkedIn profile and then that's it and done, I'm like, nope, you've got to keep tweaking, and you get feedback in terms of, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you do get feedback from quote unquote the market about how successfully you are who you're attracting with the story that you're telling on your profile and what you're sharing and so on and so forth. But so for you may literally just have a LinkedIn profile, right? And so I'm not saying that you need to have all these different things, so don't feel that way. I'm just giving you examples of different ways that you can tell your story online, or where it can be found online. But absolutely, it could simply be that, you're about to set up a LinkedIn profile. And that's good. I'd love to say that you've done that, because it's a huge platform. It's the #1 professional platform. So if there's anything you're trying to do, you're a nonprofit organization, you're a business, you're an individual, it's a very important place for you to be able to connect with other professionals, with other organizations, with other companies, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I want you to Google yourselves. I want you to go ahead and type in your name in quotes, and go ahead and see if those search results are of your digital ecosystem, storytelling ecosystem, are consistent with what you believe is your purpose. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to do that. Nicholas.
Yes.
You've been silent. Have you Googled yourself? Can we have you Google yourself?
Of course, absolutely. We've also gotten a bunch of great questions. Coincidentally enough, we're talking about purpose and mission statements and everything like that. And one question actually from AI you just asked recently is, can you address the systematic issue with the fact that purpose and our profits often don't align?
Yeah, that's a political question. Actually, that's a very loaded question. So let me tell you why that can be, and I think this is where the person is getting. So what sometimes happens with nonprofit organizations is that they may start out one way, right? So maybe the founder had a particular vision for things going a certain way, but then when the reality of having to get funding kicks in, then all of a sudden, instead of being there to solve whatever the problem they identified as being able to solve better than anybody else, when the requests come in or the grant opportunities come in for them to do something completely different, so completely go a different direction, they'll jump at it because they're just trying to stay afloat. So what happens is then all of a sudden you're completely disconnected from the mission. You're doing something you're not supposed to, completely what you're supposed to do. So that's part of it. I've also seen that, in certain parts of the world, unfortunately, I've heard people say things like, if you want to make money, start an NGO, start a nonprofit organization, because there's this perception that because the way the tax laws and things like that and the kind of governance works is a lot more fluid than businesses. So some people will go in there and they'll commit fraud. So it kind of runs the gamut. But does that kind of answer that for you, Nicholas?
Yeah, that's a great answer. And actually, you spoke earlier about LinkedIn and how important LinkedIn is. Just got a question from the audience who wants to know, essentially, how do we start our digital story? They say that they're not super tech savvy and they're not super into social media. So how do we start our digital story?
Right. So if you go on like a LinkedIn, if you go into LinkedIn and you set up your account, right? If you get the 30-day trial for the upgraded account, they have like 3 or 4 different levels. You can get the sort of like the professional version where, for people who are searching for jobs, and they give you a 30-day trial for free. And you can go use their LinkedIn Learning. They have lots of courses on LinkedIn Learning, so you can actually learn how to set up your LinkedIn profile, how to, the best practices for sharing content and so on and so forth. So you can use their resources. But if a good hack also would be to just go to YouTube, because you know how many people can just create videos on everything. So literally say, how do I set up my LinkedIn on YouTube? And someone's created a video that you can watch. So I think that's where I would take a look. I also say that you want to, if there's some people who kind of inspire you, or they're leaders who you follow, maybe take a look at how they've set their profiles up, and you can kind of emulate that to a certain extent. But I think what's important is there's a ton of training, and it's free, that's out there to literally walk you through the setup of your profile.
And I know you touched on this a little bit before, but one thing that I thought was interesting was you mentioned all the different ways that we can tell our digital stories, yes, tell our stories. How many different ways are there? I know you had mentioned that, for instance, you put on your email signature.
Yes.
That way. How many different ways, or what are some possible ways that we can tell our story doing small things or big things like that?
Right. So let me say, I go with 3, like, because I can show you a million different things, but it's going to get complicated if I try to get you to do everything. But if you do 3 things, right? So I said, like LinkedIn. I think the other thing you want to think about, like in your email signature, you're sending email all day long, right? So this is your personal email. Just go ahead, and if there's something that you're working on or something, write a piece about something. Like like when I was trying to reposition myself in 2009, I started using Twitter so that I could change my positioning, right? So then all of a sudden the search results, when you Googled me, I came up with content that was really related to what it is I wanted to be known for. So you would use one of these platforms to share content. So whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, to share content that's consistent with whatever it is that you want to do. So I'd say you want to look at so if you have an article that you've written or something like that, you can then go ahead and link to it in your email signature. So that's something that you're doing all day long. You might as well just put it in there, and also integrate like your links to your social handles. And then if you're a writer, you could start a blog. You could have a blog, so you can blog, on your own website. But again, I'm taking you back to LinkedIn, because if you write articles on LinkedIn, stuff like that, they have much greater visibility, and because you're writing on a platform that has 740 40 million people, the likelihood of someone finding your article is a lot greater than you being out in the wilderness on the internet. So it's really about generating content and using the platforms are just tools. Don't think about the platforms as like the technology. The platform just facilitates the telling of the story. So I would say, again, the email signature, their LinkedIn profile, and then I would also say that they could consider blogging or something like that as sort of a third one. But of course, when you speak, right? If you speak, get the video. If you have the video, you create a YouTube channel or something like that, then that's part of your story, right? If you do things, if you're generating content, that can all be distributed in different channels. All right. So is that good? Are we good for now?
We're good for now. Thank you all for the questions. We'll be
thank you
as we go.
Okay, so are your Google results consistent with your stated purpose? I'm going to skip over this because I'm really mindful of the fact that I need to get into exercise with you, and I don't want to keep these people any longer than we said we would. So we've got someone who gave us a yes, we've got someone who gave us a not sure. Okay, and all right. Okay, good. This is interesting that we're seeing quite a number of people are saying yes, so it seems like, okay, the no's have it now. Okay, so it's switching. But so generally speaking, when I've done this, it's been the sort of the no's and then I'm not sure is the kind of the most number of people, most results that we get. All right, so in that, let's go ahead and do the story crafting consultation with you, Nicholas. I'm mindful of the time, so I want to just quickly go through this. So everyone just remember, we've got the problem, the solution, the impact, and the ask, right? And so who's your stakeholder, Nicholas?
Well, coincidentally enough, my stakeholder is the audience out there and students that we want to enroll in some of our certificate programs here at eCornell.
But for today, it's going to be someone from, I'm leading him, eCornell leadership.
Yes, it is eCornell.
Okay, awesome. So we're in the tool, and folks, you'll get this tool at the end to be able to work on this, and the people who are going to be this later will have access, obviously, to do this. So I'm live. So when you go into the tool, you'll just type in your email address, and then what I'm coming up with a scenario so that it kind of helps you a little bit. So tell us, Nicholas, who's your stakeholder?
My stakeholder is Cornell leadership.
Okay. Do you have a particular person?
I do. My boss, Sally.
Okay. And so imagine you and Sally are the last two people left on a Zoom, and you've been dying to talk to Sally. It's been a while because you've been at Cornell now, I think, since October, right? Something like that. It's the first time you have an opportunity to speak, and you've been really wanting to speak to her, and you're like, oh, this is great. And she goes to you, okay, so Nicholas got my attention. Tell me what you've been doing. What's going on? How can I help you? Okay, so we go into, so for folks at home, you would record your name, your organization and stuff below and the role that you have. So Nicholas, so you're Nicholas, and what's your current role?
I am a digital media producer.
Okay, and then, so what is the problem that you can solve for Sally? Like, so hi Sally, if you're there, what's the problem, the key problem, one problem you can solve for her?
Well, essentially what I can do is I can get more students to sign up for our certificate programs and get more people to watch some of these keynotes here.
Okay, so increase enrollment certificate programs. So what it is that she's looking to increase enrollments in certificate programs, and of course, part of doing so is having audiences for having increased audiences for these keynotes, right? Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. And then what is your solution? So, what do you have to offer Sally to solve this problem? Like, what are your unique skills and expertise, background? What's your special sauce?
Well, I think I'm excellent at being able to craft a conversation that can keep people engaged and make sure that people want to learn more about some of the certificates that we offer and want to maybe hear more about some of our excellent professors, such as yourself, Liz. Engaging conversations
that interest in Cornell programs. Okay, what else? What is it about your background that enables you to do that? Because you have a skill, like not everybody can do what you do. So what is it about your background and how you are that makes you really great at this?
Well, coincidentally enough, I actually also talk to people on a regular basis. My background is as a journalist.
Right.
So I know what can keep people's interest, or what can keep them engaged long enough, or want to learn more, or what are some key takeaways that can make them take action and want to maybe say, hey, let me learn more about that.
Okay, to increase the engagement and interest. Okay. And folks, forgive me for typing like this. I just, we're trying to get this quickly. So if I have typos, it is kind of, I've got it. Okay. And so your journalist as a background enables you to do so. Is there anything else? Any more about your special sauce?
I think I know how to maybe tailor a conversation to the point where it can pique people's interest, to the point where they can say, hey, this is really something that I would want to do, or I would want to, or something that could help me develop professionally.
Right. Help Sally's stakeholders.
Yes. Help Sally's stakeholders develop professionally.
Okay. And then, so what's the impact? So what does it matter? Why does it matter to Sally, and then also to her stakeholders? And so Sally's stakeholders are
students and business professionals who.
Okay. So why does it matter? Why does what you do matter? That you're able to craft these engaging conversations that increase interest in Cornell's certificate programs, and that you're a journalist who really knows how to pull that story together and knows what people are interested in to help them develop professionally. Why does that matter to Sally?
Well, because I think looking at the past and looking at some of the audience numbers that we've been able to generate, or that I've been able to generate through some of these conversations here, like these ones with yourself, I've seen the numbers steadily grow. And obviously having more viewership and having larger audience and ambassador for Cornell can help us obviously get more professionals interested in some of these certificate programs.
Okay. And that's wonderful. And then why does it matter to the students and what you do? Why does it matter to them? Why does it matter to the professionals that you were great at what you do?
Well, I think because everything is about professional development. I think that I offer something that most people don't. And I think that you offer something that most people don't, which is I'm able to sit down and have just a regular conversation, but also give people the chance to say, hey, I'm really interested in that. Maybe I should look deeper into this and sign up for a certificate program. So
you're actually helping people to connect to the content and the learning that will help to advance their careers.
Yes.
Right? I led you a little bit. Okay. Let's just call it career advancement, just for the brevity. Okay, and what do you want from Sally? This is it. This is the drum roll. Say what you want. Now give her attention. She's like, okay, wait, I've got my attention. What do you want Sally to do? You want her to have a Zoom coffee with her? Do you want her to, what is it that you want from Sally?
Well, I would say I think with looking at the past and considering the numbers that I'm able to generate, and possibly the number of certificates people have taken directly because of me, I'd like to be able to sit down and have some coffee, talk about my future, and hopefully get a full-time position here.
Oh, about my future. Okay, future potential full-time position. Okay, great. You got to ask for what you want. All right, so let's put it all together. Folks at home, you would type this, but Nicholas, let's just do it. I want you to say it. Say it all now to me. So I'm Sally. I'm ready. Tell this all to me.
Well, Sally, I think given the number of audience members that, we get during some of my keynotes, and I think they're looking in the past and seeing the number of people who have maybe watched the keynotes, but also signed up for certificate programs, I feel like I can really be a benefit to you as a team member and also as a full-time team member, and continue to get more and more people signing up for some of these certificate programs.
Great. Okay. So you want to have a coffee to talk about this?
Yes.
Great. Coffee. I'll send you a Zoom link. Okay. So that was sort of it. But when you summarize, folks, and Nicholas, thank you for being the guinea pig here. So what would happen is this was Nicholas's LinkedIn profile before he actually updated a little bit this past week. But and I'm going to show you how to update it in the second session. So I want you to stay with me for that. But each of these elements are actually opportunities for Nicholas to share about his connection to eCornell. So right now, right here, every week, he's actually facilitating, or he's producing these keynotes. He could promote the keynotes here, or he could promote eCornell, and Sally will be like really excited to see that he's a great digital ambassador. The photograph that he has is a generic. It's a nice photograph, but it's a generic professional photo. I want to see you in action. I want to see you doing what you do, because the photo is going to tell me who you are. I also want to see that right now you're identifying as a media journalist at Spectrum News. We got to make sure that if you want Sally to see you as, an eCornell full-time producer and so on and so forth, you got to put it out there, that's who you are. And then how you describe yourself, you would tweak your description here to kind of integrate the pieces we discussed. Obviously, you were creating it specifically for Sally, but you just want to strip it out and do it for a larger audience if you were going to update. And Nicholas, you have no post that you've created. eCornell is sharing content all the time. There are these talks. You have an opportunity to share the talks that you're producing to your audience, and also to comment and connect with the audience's post the talks that you do. So you really have a great opportunity. You have a built-in sort of audience and folks that you engage with on a regular basis. So folks, this is how Nicholas hopefully is going to upgrade. So Nicholas, I'm going to challenge everybody to link in with you, and we're going to make sure that you update your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. All right, we're at the end of this, and I know the team is like texting me to tell me we've got to wrap it up. And so there are 3 things that I told you I teach, so I'm always about homework. 3 commitments I want each of you to make. I want you to stay on for part 2 of this session and access my storytelling tool I created bit.ly/eCornell story. Or you can go ahead and use this QR code to go ahead and access it. And I believe the team, Nina and Coco, are actually sharing it I think on Facebook and in LinkedIn. I want you to gather your current storytelling pieces, so your LinkedIn profile, your bio, your resume, whatever it may be, so that you're ready to get going. And I'm hoping that some of you already had done that. And then also, for those of you who are leaving us, please do consider coming to my website, lizingonzi.com. In fact, we just relaunched it yesterday. So a year ago today, we launched the first version of it, and this today we're actually launching actually it was last night, we launched the newest version. So go ahead and learn about some of the coaching, training, and speaking services that I can provide to you, your employees, members, and or students, and just engage with my content. I have a lot of content that I share that I think can be valuable, and also sign up for my newsletter. Connect with me again on my website, lizingonzi.com, and share your experience on social media at lizingonzi. So you can go ahead and on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on Twitter, and connect with me. I'd be happy to be connected with you, and I want to hear from you about how this is working for you, and I want you to do your story. So I want to thank Chris. You get to see the 2 Chris's you don't get to see. You don't get to see Caitlin. You just got to see Nicholas. But I want to thank this team, and I know there are a lot of other folks at eCornell who really made this possible. I want to say a special thank you to Keith Lineup, who is my boss at eCornell when I'm doing my facilitation. I want to thank Deb Streeter, Professor Streeter, and Kirsten Barker, who head up the Bank of America Institute for Women's Entrepreneurship, and Sally's the one who actually connected me in, and Professor Andrea Ippolito as well. So thank you very much for that. And then I want to thank Nina and Coco, who have been communicating with you throughout this process and helped me to put this presentation. It took a long time to get together. So thank you. And I want to ask you, what are the 3 takeaways you got from this session? I'm going to thank you, obviously, because you know what you just did? You gave me the most valuable asset you have that you can never get back, and that's your time. So I thank you for doing that, and I want to hear from you. What are the 3 key takeaways that you got from this session? And like I said, if you stay on, if you go ahead and use the tool, I will send you my presentation with everything compiled, because I want to make sure that you have this. You can work on this on yourself. So update your LinkedIn profile and post more. Yes, absolutely. What are some? How about you, Nicholas? What are some takeaways that you got?
Really, how impactful LinkedIn can be. I think it's one of those things that, especially going through the 4 bullet points. I know we've went through it a couple times. There were definitely some parts where I really had to sit down and think, okay, like, who's my stakeholder? What is my ask? What is my purpose? I think too often, like you had mentioned before, that when we're talking and when we're thinking about, possibly changing careers or, possibly looking for a raise or something, we always think about things in somewhat bullet points. And that's
right.
kind of honestly how I think we're taught. But to have to think about, okay, what is our story? What is our purpose? I think that's really one of the things, or my biggest takeaway that I think.
Right. No, I agree with you. I mean, it's actually, that's an excellent point, because one of the things I was taught, last year I had an opportunity to speak with some hotel school master's students who were, obviously impacted by what happened with COVID. I mean, the hospitality industry was really, really affected by this. And one of the things I was talking about was that, in one way they were thinking of their skills and so on and so forth as really being about hospitality. But I was like, no, you've got great analytical skills. You understand how to deal with people. The program there is a business program. So you have skills that can be transferred elsewhere. So if you start thinking about what you're really interested in, let's say maybe hospitality is where you came in, but maybe that's not where you are. Perhaps it could be that you can understand how to take your understanding of service and then integrate it into other things that you do. Like, so for instance, for me, I don't work in hospitality, but everything I do, my approach is informed by the fact that I went through a hospitality management program and my orientation towards service for people. So it's kind of being able to move away from that kind of programming you've been given, and look at what the bigger picture is and things where you're great and what you're interested in, and then integrate them into whatever it is you're trying to accomplish.
And so we're going to step away for a quick 5 minutes so everybody can kind of get some of their stuff together. Again, make sure to click on that QR code.
Yes. So we're going to do that. And I thank everyone again, but here's what I want to do. I'm asking people to go ahead and share questions. You can go ahead. I'm going to be typing in for you. I'm going to be responding to your different questions. Nicholas, people want to find you on LinkedIn.
I will make sure to put my
Nicholas
LinkedIn.
Phillips.
I'll make sure to put my LinkedIn there. There I get to find everything. I'm usually not this casual.
Okay. And so someone's looking for the bit.ly. So Nina and Coco, can you go ahead and please share the bit.ly link in the chats for them? Someone's having a connectivity issues. Yes, there will be a replay, and I believe it's on the website where they register. Is that correct, Nicholas?
Yes. So for folks who missed it, this is being recorded and will be available at the same URL immediately following. If you're having any issues, try refreshing your page or everything like that. And if there is something you missed or you ended up coming late, again, this will be recorded and will be available at the same URL immediately following our conversation today.
Okay, no problem. And then I will be answering questions during this sort of little break that we have. So folks, get yourselves ready, but I'll be responding to questions from folks to make sure. And then am I on camera? As I said, thank you, everybody. Have a great day for those of you.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. Okay, so is this what's on screen?
Well, welcome back, everybody. We hope you're ready in this hour. We want to coordinate with you personally and help you craft your own personal story. You will learn to share your story through your digital storytelling ecosystem, i.e., your LinkedIn profile, blogs, webinars, and everything like that. And I'll hand it over to Liz.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas. We're back. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited back with you. I'm super energized. That was fun, Nicholas. I enjoyed doing your story with you. And Sally, I hope you're listening. So we're here for part two. The first part, we're really like focused on kind of setting a baseline of understanding. And now in part two, what we're going to do is talk about how you share your story through your digital storytelling ecosystem. Where again, I'm emphasizing you've got all the different nodes, but LinkedIn is going to be a really important part of this. And I'll show you how I do so myself. Then we're going to give you an opportunity to go ahead and craft your story, and I will be online, or I will go through the tool while you're going through it, so you can see sort of how you can go ahead and craft your story with some prompts from me. And Nicholas and I will go back and forth to kind of help you as you do this, and then we'll talk about some next steps. And I want everyone to understand, I'm not expecting that you're going to get this perfect in the short period of time we have together. It's just a great place for you to start. So you'll have this. The tool will be available. Be available to you to use again in the future. So don't worry about that. All right. So I want to know if anybody, what percentage of you participated in the first part, because it will help me to understand how much context I need to provide for the second part of this webinar, how much I need to go back to some of the basics. Okay. All right. So, okay. So yes, mostly 9. Okay. So I'm going to go with most of you were part one with us for part one. Terrific. Let's go to sharing your story through digital storytelling ecosystem. Remember what I stated for, so I said, this is my personal purpose statement that was geared towards you, my stakeholders today, which is my audience, right? International speaker helping people and organizations to clarify the purpose. I state that in there, the problem is there. I've got the solution after that, and I do so drawing upon my special sauce, my what's unique about me, and my skills and my experience. And then we go into the impact. So how does that help my stakeholders to help their stakeholders to create greater impact? And then I made an asking you to participate actively in this particular session. So again, it's problem, solution, impact, and ask, okay? So I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the storytelling ecosystem. So you can see here I've LinkedIn really highlighted. But so when you're really looking at your ecosystem, I went back and forth with Nicholas in the earlier session where I talked about the fact that you maybe want to just focus on like 3 platforms, but you don't have the bandwidth and time and so on and so forth. Just do that one, which is that LinkedIn profile. Because here are the different ways you can use it. So if you are someone who is actively seeking work, okay, that's what most people know, right? They know it as a resume site. But it's also a site where if, let's say, you have a business or you have a nonprofit organization, and I told you that I wrote an article that will be published next month in the Nonprofit Times about how nonprofits can, 5 best practices that nonprofits can use to engage their supporters online, right? And to raise funds. One of the things that you've got to know is if you've got a business and you have an upgraded account, you actually can conduct research and have access to the prospective, people you want to work with. But even more importantly, you are able to establish your brand. So you're sharing your thought leadership. So if you are starting something new or you're trying to reposition yourself, it's a great place for you to publish. It's a really great place for you to really get your name and stuff out there. And it's going to be seen, your content will be seen by potentially a lot more people there if you do all the right things than anywhere else. So that's why I want you to think about that. But of course, you also have to look at how you appear in all these other different places if you happen to be there. So if someone contacts you and says, "Oh, we want to interview for you for XYZ," and it's for a topic that's the opposite of what you do, or it really isn't going to reinforce it, guess what? Don't do it, because it's not what you're about, right? If you say that I'm about this is my story, this is what I'm about, then you don't do that. But if an opportunity comes that reinforces your story, then you say yes, right? And so it also helps you to make decisions about what you want to be part of, what you want to volunteer for. So I get asked to volunteer all the time for different organizations. And it's not to say that I don't want to help them, but I'm really clear about what my priority areas are in terms of the volunteer work that I do. So and how that's connected to my purpose. And if that opportunity does not align, then I'm not going to do it. So if you see the things I get involved in, they're very much aligned with my purpose. At this time. And then, of course, social media platforms, what you're sharing, the content you're sharing, the platforms you choose to be on. Like the people who are on Instagram are different from the people who are on Twitter versus the people who are on Facebook or TikTok, or now I'm on Clubhouse. And I've been on Clubhouse since January, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with it. Not that I understand how to use it. I just don't know how I can make it work for me. But anyway, so there are all these different platforms, but depending on where you, like what you prioritize or what you say you're all about, these platforms may not necessarily be really right for you. So you've got to find the one that works for what you say is your purpose, who you want to speak to, and where those people are so that you can speak to them where they naturally live, right? And so if you want to speak to like our intern, Nina, right? Nina's the Gen Z, right? That's what she is. I think, no, Nicholas, what's the latest one? The generation.
I believe
Gen Z?
I believe Gen Z.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm forgetting the different ones.
Right. So she's not going to communicate with you on Facebook because that's not it. But she's like on Snapchat. She's on TikTok. She's on, right. So if you're trying to communicate with someone she's Gen Z, she just texted me to say that. So if that's your audience, then there's certain platforms you're not going to go on. But let's say if you're trying to speak to CEOs, you've got to figure out where CEOs congregate online to be able to find them, or go to forums or whatever where they are, because that's where you're going to be very, very strategic about being. I talked about your email signature, and it's important for you to understand that your email signature, again, is a real just easy thing that you're sending email all day long. You might as well go ahead and share whatever it is that you want people to know about you. Let me talk about the virtual meetings in which you participate, or which I participate. Again, you want to be an active participant. So you're here. There's certain people who are maybe in a forum like this, or who are in the eCornell keynote. They might be participating on, let's say, the LinkedIn platform, or they might be like on Facebook. They have an opportunity to connect with people. They can use this as an opportunity to share what they know, and so on and so forth. So in fact, then they start standing out. So instead of this being a talk about Nicholas, you and I are participating in, they now also create a space for themselves to be seen and heard if they want to be part of this conversation. So it's just being active. Like even when you're in a meeting, right? When you're in a meeting within your own organization, how do you show up? Are you the person who has a screen shut down and you don't say anything? Or are you the person who has ideas and doing things? Because again, you're telling who you are by your actions. And when people find you, search engine results, is it consistent with what you say, what you say you're all about? And then, I use digital thank you notes. That's a very important part of my brand and how I am and how I come into the world, because I understand gratitude is a very important part of anything that I do. And so that's an important thing for me to do. And so those are some of the things you can consider. If you Google my name, okay, and I do recognize if depending on the browser, where you are, so on and so forth, it's going to vary, but this is just for illustrative purposes. In the ecosystem, I use the icons to kind of share with you the different sort of, nodes or places of your ecosystem. For me, if you search me, the first thing that comes up, no surprise, is LinkedIn. The next thing would be one of my websites, Liz Nganzi, and then you've got my Twitter account, you've got my profile at New York University, right? You've got my speaking engagements. You've got some interviews in which I've been involved, exactly. And then my other speaking engagements as well. So you just right here on this sort of first page, you already get a sense for what I'm about and what I do, and it's consistent with what I've told you. Now, does it mean that every single page is perfect? No, because things are fluid in certain ways. But the point is that there's a consistency about how my story shows up and who I am and what I'm about. So you want to think about that for yourself. When you go ahead to LinkedIn, right? So you have an opportunity. I was mentioning how with Nicholas's profile, there's no photo there. So that cover photo is an opportunity for you to showcase whatever you want. It could be that, listen, if you're like into yoga or you're a yoga instructor and you want that, then you could be a photograph of you teaching a yoga class, or it could be a photograph of you doing a yoga pose, or it could be of the ocean. It could be something, but you want to have that. That's like really prime real estate, because it's an opportunity. When people pull up your profile, that's the first thing they see. So you want to make sure that photo really reflects what you want. So for me, that typically will change depending on the speaking engagement or project that I'm working on or we're working on. So I use that as a place for me to kind of tell to share what I'm working on or my story. The photograph that you intentionally choose, is going to convey what it is you want. Again, yoga instructor, you got to look like that. If you're you want to be a CEO, or you want to be a teacher, or you want to be whatever it is, think about how you want that photograph to convey who you are. So people immediately are visually able to clue into you without having to really go without having to think very, very greatly about it. I've deliberately kind of used color coded each section to show you where like problem, solution, impact, and ask show up in different parts of my profile. So here, this is really kind of my solution. I'm showing you that I teach, and I speak, even the way I describe myself, the fact that the choice of organizations or companies that I'm linked to here that tells you something. I have a thing where providing services. So that's again around the solution, and then even the image. The image tells you basically that I'm someone who probably speaks, teaches, or something in that neighborhood, right? Over here, when you start getting into my about, right, when you go and delve in a little bit deeper, now there's some people who are of the mind that this should be really short, and that's really up to you. But you can actually get everything you need in my story in the first couple paragraphs, and then delve in deeper elsewhere if you want. But in here, this actually serves two different purposes. So you've got, the whole section is really speaking about the problems that I solve, and then a little bit in this section talks about the impact that I make, in terms of how I solve the problems that I do, and then the solution. This is all solution. So the different ways that I'm able to basically convey my purpose or work my purpose. And then ultimately I have some kind of an ask. Some people will directly say, contact me so I can sell to you. How direct you want to be is really a matter of whatever your personality is. I'm mindful of the fact that there are various different types of people who communicate with me on these platforms. So collaboration is kind of better sort of ask for my purposes. Again, if you have an upgraded LinkedIn account, so this is, if you just have a regular account, all you'll be able to see is like, they'll show you that one person searched you. That's about it. But here, if you go into your profile, you're able to see how many people, or how many times your profile showed up in search results. So in this one particular week, my profile showed up in 550 searches, and the top number or the institutions or organizations where most number of people work was NYU, Cornell, GLG, and Hunter College. And it probably has, this changes on every week depending on what it is, whatever it is I'm working on. But NYU would make sense because NYU just posted about my award, so other NYU people would have seen it probably. You've got Cornell, obviously what we're doing here. So those I can kind of explain. If you go here, you also can know what your searchers do, right? Why that's important is that if, let's say, you're looking for a job and this doesn't show that recruiters were finding you, then you've got to tweak your profile. So this gives you very, very important information in terms of what they do. So this is consistent kind of like with what I am. A couple of weeks ago, it was like, so I've got consultant, you've got people looking for a professor, they're looking for executive director, so maybe someone's trying to headhunt. They're executive director, so maybe someone who is looking for someone to do consulting for them. It could be that, someone who's a founder, again, is looking for maybe a coach, and so on and so forth. So it really kind of varies. Here, it tells you what the keywords your searchers use to find you, to find your profile. And so they were looking, so chief executive officer, chief marketing officer, assistant professor, coach, and Hunter, which I'm imagining is Hunter College. So that's telling me right now, based on whatever it is that, how my profile looks at that particular time, that at least one of the things coming up that's consistent with what I'm looking for is the word coach. And sometimes it's speaker, right? So for me, what I would do is LinkedIn will give you the opportunity to go ahead and go back into your profile and figure out what you need to tweak. So maybe the content that you share and the hashtags that you use, or even just maybe the skills that you highlight that will, that will kind of correspond with whatever it is you want people to find. It could also be, the people with whom you're connected. But a lot of it is driven by the content that you're sharing and the keywords that you embed into your profile. All right. So Nicholas, are we ready to craft a story?
We are. We actually.
Do we have some questions?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
To getting questions. So one of the questions we actually got was, what can this person do to differentiate themselves if they have a very common name?
Middle initial.
Okay.
They could use a middle initial, or they could go with their middle name, right? So like I'm Elizabeth Natasha Ngonzi. So they could use their middle name or middle initial. And so that would mean is in if you see in my profile, I'm Elizabeth and then in brackets, Liz Ngonzi. And I just deliberately did that because I was trying to get the Elizabeth to pick up. There's an article that, it's not bad, I didn't do anything bad, but there's an article that was written 20 years ago that gets a lot of hits that is based on my past life and working in different field. And I wanted to sort of bring up other stuff. So I went ahead and I knew that LinkedIn would actually bring Elizabeth really, really high. So I went ahead and changed. So I made it Elizabeth, in parentheses, Liz Ngonzi. So for this person, if they want their name, we want to start being seen with this new name or new version of their name, that's a good place to start, is changing the name that shows up on their LinkedIn profile, and then start changing all of their other profiles. And then eventually when people start searching for them, they're going to find them that way.
And we actually just got a nice, interesting follow-up from Anton. They asked, do you recommend, instead of doing kind of a lengthy write-up on your LinkedIn, maybe do a video instead?
I love that. Yeah. So they've integrated, they've actually introduced that. Two areas I've been slammed, but that I've been wanting to really delve deeper into are videos. So video for your profile, as well as stories. And so those are really interesting developments. And I'm going to be doing some more research to learn a little bit about more how to use them. But video is really powerful because here's the thing. Outside of someone meeting you face to face, the video is the second most powerful way for someone to understand who you are and to connect with you, right? Because, sometimes people fall flat and maybe they're not great writers, right? But they come alive in person. And so in a video, you're really able to convey who you are. I also am a huge proponent of LinkedIn Live. I know right now some people are watching this on LinkedIn Live. Last year I did, something like 40 LinkedIn Lives, just trying to help people really with their to get through the COVID, the challenges that they encountered during COVID. And so you can actually have LinkedIn Live. So that gives you opportunity to be like a LinkedIn Live broadcaster. So again, if you want to start sharing, if you have something that you're knowledgeable about, or you want to be establish yourself as a thought leader in a specific space, you can use that tool. You need to be approved for it, but it's something that you'd be able to use. So video in that sense as well.
And this is really just kind of for me, but I guess how useful has, seeing the statistics there, been for you, and seeing some of these numbers, for you on your LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm a very analytics driven person. So like I said, constantly tweaking, it's feedback, right? It's not, I know most people don't have time to do that, but like I Google myself. I also in the past have set up like Google alerts on my name or my company's names or whatever it is I'm working on. So I kind of am aware of what's being put out there. So that's something people might want to think about. But you really, the information tells you whether or not the marketing, because it's a marketing tool. So if you're marketing, then you want to be able to measure whether you're successful or not. You're marketing and tweak your strategy and your tactics. So I do very much look at those numbers, whether it's on the business pages or on my own personal.
And actually, we just got a question from Cadence, I believe. They ask, should one worry if just your first or last name comes up in a search and it's not you?
If they're a murderer. What that tells me is that this person hasn't really necessarily done a great job of sort of generating content and putting themselves out there in a consistent way, so that that when people search them, that content is rising. It means that they either don't have a lot of content or it's just scattered.
And actually, as a quick follow-up, Mary Ross asks, how do you develop a presence on a Google search?
Generate content. So one thing would be to set up you want to set up like a LinkedIn profile, a Twitter profile, if that's what you want, in Twitter, Facebook, whatever platform really works for whoever it is that you're trying to engage. And just by virtue of setting up your accounts, right, and populating them, and then starting to share content through them, so posts, articles, whatever it may be, then all of a sudden people will be able to find you, because what happens is there are all these crawlers that are looking for content, and they pull your content and they remix your content on different sites. So the more you generate, the more likely your content rises and it's available and searchable. So you just have to generate content. That's it. And when I say generate content, I know some people are like, well, I don't have time to write articles. I don't have time to do this. But you have time to reshare an article that maybe you read, right? And you can just add a little kind of, commentary about that, so that, again, now you're part of a conversation. So sometimes when I post on LinkedIn, I don't have time to do more than write something like, maybe if I see an article that I think would be helpful for some of the women in our program in the Bank of America Institute that I think might be funding opportunities, I may share it and just say funding, like hashtag it funding opportunities for women or whatever it may be. And, hope, and then people will be able to find it that way, because I don't have time to write a whole narrative around it. But it's an article that I know absolutely will be important. It's time sensitive. So it's not like I'm crushing it all the time with this enormous amount of content. I don't have the time either, but I'm strategic about what I'm able to share. And sometimes it's literally just because someone else has created something that's great and I want other people to find it, I'll share it and just either write a little, like a sentence or a paragraph, or just some hashtags and just move it, share it along.
And how often should we update our LinkedIn or our digital story so that we can get our name out there more often, more frequently?
Right. So in terms of, again, it all depends. Like if you have one of these upgraded accounts and you're really trying to get to a specific place with your in terms of you're trying to reach an objective. So you're going to be able to see these reports on an ongoing basis. Or if you use like a Hootsuite or one of these other platforms, you can actually even look at the analytics from there. But it all just depends on how quickly you need to have something happen, right? So if you're starting a business or like that, then you've got to be a little bit more intentional about generating content all the time. But in terms of generating content, there are guidebooks, or what they call social media cheat sheets out there that tell you like the frequency with which you should be posting. So I know that the question was about updating their content, but updating their profiles. But if people are not finding you, that tells you that's feedback. And so you've got to look at how to, what are the things you need to tweak in your profile to make it much more interesting and people to find you. And also follow other people and share other people's content. Because guess what? This is again that interconnectedness. The more you share other people's content, the more likely they are to share your content, right? And then also commenting on things. You can comment on other people's content. It's not like you have to also just generate that. So you can think about that, and that also will increase your visibility. But I would finally say that, it's something that you have to be very proactive about. Like I said, there are times that you're supposed to, like I think they say the best time to post on LinkedIn would be, I think, Tuesdays through Thursdays, 9 to 5 p.m. Eastern. But you know what? What if you're in Kenya? I work with a lot of people in East Africa or Southern Africa, and so on and so forth. It doesn't necessarily translate, right? So you've got to be a little bit more flexible. And then sometimes for me, some of the people I interact with, quite a number of them are active on the weekends, right? So it's really, you need to be very, you need to monitor it and kind of get a sense for what's the rhythm that kind of works for you.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about craft your story.
Okay, let's go ahead and craft the story because this is what they came for. So, folks, I believe Nina and Coco have gone ahead and shared with you the bit.ly link, but it's bit.ly/eCornell story. You can also scan the QR code here, either way, for you to be able to access it. And let me go ahead and all right, so craft your story. Let's talk about why we're doing it. So we're going to apply what you learned today to develop your own story, and then I want you to eventually integrate it into your digital storytelling ecosystem. Let me know that you have, and I'll take a look. You've got the bit.ly again, and then when you're finished, make sure when you're finished working on your story, even if it's just you've gotten just to a certain point, go ahead and hit send, and we'll send you a copy of the story. And I said to you that for those of you who actually do hit send, and you get a copy of your story, I will have your email address and I will send you my presentation with everything integrated into it. So that's how you'll be able to get my presentation as well. So go ahead and scan the QR code, bit.ly/eCornell story. And let me go ahead, Nicholas, and I'm literally live in the tool with you. So I'm going to share with folks. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is type in your email address, valid email. I've copied in the storytelling framework just to make it easy for you to use. Your stakeholders can be whoever they want, but these are just examples. Remember, Nicholas, we did the activity with you where you were in with Sally, your last two people left in the Zoom, and she asked you, what do you want? How can I help you? What's going on with you? And so for those who are working on their stories online right now with us, go ahead and think about, who is that person? So maybe you may not have a name specifically, but maybe it's a type of stakeholder. So is it a prospective client? Is it prospective investor? Is it who is it that you're is your stakeholder that you want to craft this story for, right? Now, if you can't think about that, it just helps when you have someone who you sort of have in mind when you're doing these kinds of exercises, because otherwise it's really purely theoretical and it's a little bit hard to do. So I want you to think about who that stakeholder is. Nicholas, so we've got that. I'm going to bring you in for a second. So after you think about that stakeholder, then I'm going to want you to record your name and organization and roll below as you'd like. And so I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to think about your stakeholder and then who your stakeholder is. And then I want you to think about a key problem that you can solve for that stakeholder. So what's keeping that stakeholder up at night? Nicholas, how was it for you when you had to do this? Because I know we had to, we kind of worked on this a little bit. How was it for you having to think about the stakeholder and having to think about what's the problem and stuff like that you?
I'm not gonna lie, it was definitely challenging. I think it was one of those things where, we sat down, I think for roughly about an hour and was trying to really hammer this out. And I think that this is a perfect example of that it's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be immediately, instantly. It is one of those things where, at least for me, I had to really sit back and think about it and work with you to kind of answer some of these questions and figure out exactly who my stakeholder was and what's that problem that I solve for them that can help them easier.
Exactly. And the thing is, when I work with my clients, we don't get to this part until there's probably session 3 that we even get to this point. So there's a bunch of stuff that needs to be done before we get there. But just for the purpose of this of this event, I wanted at least to give them something that they could use. But I absolutely agree. You got to do some introspection. And like I said, you've got to start from there so you can really get clear about what it is you're trying to accomplish, who it is that you're trying to accomplish it for, and then, how what you bring to the table is really going to enable you to do so effectively. Okay, so state the problem of that stakeholder for whom you can solve the problem, right? And it's about the problem that's keeping them up at night that you're able to solve for them. It's not about what you do. It's about what their problem is, right? So I remember, Nicholas, we kept talking. I was like, no, it's about Sally. What is Sally? What keeps her up at night? Not what you do. It's what keeps her up at night. Right. And so once you've done that, folks, then you want to think about, okay, so, how how do you uniquely solve your stakeholders problem through what you do or your potential role, and and what's your special sauce? What is that thing that's different about you? Because we all have that special thing and it about us, right? And it's sort of partially informed by our background or even the work we've done. Like, for instance, for me, part of who I am, the international is a very important part of who I am, because I grew up going to the United Nations International School for 13 years. I grew up in a UN family, so my orientation is naturally international. Like I think that way. I learned French when I was 5. I mean, so that is what's a little bit different to what I, from what I bring into to the table when I'm doing whatever I do, because I have that orientation, right? What is for you, it could be special skills, it could be something that you learn. I referenced that as, when I went through my program, the business program at Cornell through the hotel school, yes, I learned about hospitality, but as an industry, but I learned business skills. But what I learned about hospitality informs what I do in terms of the service I deliver to my clients, in terms of the service I deliver to my students, how I show up. So just understanding that. Does that make sense, Nicholas?
It does. It makes perfect sense. And that's the thing. I think, going through this, like I mentioned before, when we went through this the first time, it really, I really had to, look at myself and figure out, okay, well, what is unique about my perspective? And I think that's something that our audience can also share, is really think about what you bring, that's unique to you personally. So for me, for example, I do have a journalism background, which not a lot of people, were lugging cameras around all day talking to people. So, me, it's a journalist.
You speak like a journalist when you're introducing me. I was like, oh, he's a journalist.
I do. I certainly do. But now that we have some downtime, I do want to get to some audience questions. And this one's actually from Amy. She asks, what about someone who has switched career fields? I know obviously with the pandemic and everything like that, people are starting to rethink their jobs and their careers. And Amy wants to know, she has gaps in her work and is still trying to get their new identity established. Any tips for navigating through this? Asks Amy.
This was Amy, you said? Mm-hmm. Amy. Okay. So I think that, again, well, not again, but I think a lot of times we think linearly, right? So when we're crafting our resumes or bios, whatever it may be, we're taught to do so in a linear fashion. But maybe what's more important is grouping or looking at your experiences in terms of, the types of experiences, the type of work that you've done, the kind of impact you've made. So for instance, like my background doesn't fit very neatly in a resume, it's not because of gaps or anything like that. It's just because I run businesses, I teach, I do a lot of different things. So I try to cluster around sort of themes. So you could think about themes like maybe like, if you're working on a resume, you could be creating themes like around like sort of, your work in, it could be sort of like leadership experience. It could be something around like, entrepreneurship, or it could be creativity or, things like that. So looking at sort of what the themes are, the overall themes around the work that you've done, so that the person's eye is not drawn to the timeline, but they're drawn to what you've accomplished during that period of time. People have gaps. I mean, at some point they're going to know that you have the gaps. So you're also going to have to figure out how to address those gaps. And I'm not sure what the reason behind those gaps are, but I believe that you should just be transparent about them, whatever it may be. Insofar as you can be in a professional setting, but emphasizing just what you've actually created and accomplished and contributed, and what's special about you, and what's different about you. Because if you focus on those things, then that the rest of it kind of sort of dissipates a bit. So that's what I would suggest. So once you talk about the problem you can solve for your stakeholder, you state the solution how you can uniquely solve your stakeholder's problem through your role and your special sauce. The next thing is really looking at what's that impact for that. Why does it matter to your stakeholder? Like, again, you're solving their problem. What is it ultimately? What is the implication of what you're doing on your stakeholder? So like for Sally, as Nicholas, the stakeholder, the fact that Nicholas has very high viewership for his eCornell keynotes, the fact that they're very engaging and they potentially are driving people to sign up for certificate programs is absolutely important to Sally, because Sally at the end of the day is part, for what she does, she's looking to have more people register for the programs that eCornell has to offer. The other thing that's important is that what's important to Sally stakeholders. So Sally stakeholders are professionals, Sally stakeholders are students. And so the fact that Nicholas is creating these kind of engaging eCornell keynote conversations and so on and so forth and drawing them in is helping the stakeholders to potentially access courses and training and information and network and so on and so forth that can help to advance their career, to help them to realize their purpose, to work out their purpose. So ultimately, by doing what Nicholas does, he's helping Sally to be able to connect more closely to her stakeholders and to drive value for them. Does that make sense, Nicholas?
It does. It certainly does.
Yeah. And then you want to get to step 4 is you got to ask for what you want, right? Nicholas, didn't we go back and forth about this?
Oh, we definitely went back and forth multiple times.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, we never want to ask for what we want, and we have to, because what's the point? Why go through all of this and not ask for what you want, right? Because we're so used to just taking what we've been given, right? Because there's so many people are sort of programmed that way, and not saying, no, I deserve this. Let me ask for it. Let me ask for what I want. Because you know what? The worst can happen is they say no, but at least you tried. So it's important to go ahead and make the ask. And so maybe you don't have to go like with a huge ask, but can I have a Zoom coffee meeting with you to talk about whatever? For those of you who are in person, can we meet in person? Or it's that you're writing, like I get LinkedIn requests all the time, and I've seen that some people sent me LinkedIn requests from this event, and I will absolutely accept them. But I get sometimes LinkedIn requests, and people write the craziest things to me, and I'm like, you really think that that's going to motivate me to connect with you? But if you had a nice little kind of couple paragraphs, whatever, just not short, whatever sentences about who you are, and here's the thing, how I benefit from being connected to you. Yeah, I'm probably going to be interested in connecting with you, right? So it's understanding. So it could be that the stakeholder that you're trying to connect with is someone who you want to connect with on LinkedIn. It could be that the stakeholder is someone who maybe your stakeholder isn't even someone that you actually know, but maybe you're trying to apply for a grant, or maybe you're applying for a prize or a fellowship or something like that. And so you've got to think about, when you're writing a cover letter, they always say that when I was in sales years ago for a technology company, and they always said that, you have to ask for the business, right? So a lot of times we go through all this stuff, we write all this really wonderful stuff about ourselves, why we qualify for this fellowship or whatever it may be, but you got to actually ask for it. I'd like to be considered. Thank you for considering, whatever it may be. And so just make your ask and state it and get it done. So, and then finally, you'll want to pull all of this together like Nicholas and I did. And I encourage you to role play with someone on this, like have someone else, one of your trusted advisors kind of help you a little bit with this, and go ahead and create a concise version of that story, which you can then integrate into your digital storytelling ecosystem. Don't forget to submit, and I will send you my presentation as well. Okay, so once you're done, Nicholas, I know that you've upgraded from here, but I just want to remind people that they've got to look at each one of these elements clearly and figure out, what they're going to be able to do. So maybe you might not be able to have every single element covered, but let's start with a cover image that just sort of reflects what you believe is your purpose. Let's get a photograph that, a profile photo that's really connected to what you say your purpose is. Let's go ahead and get your headline really connecting to who you say you are at this point. And let's get some words here. Like right now, Nicholas, I said to you, when did you graduate from college?
2011. Oof.
Right. So you don't need to know about your bachelor's degree anymore. Right. And so you have all this other experience. Tell me about all your experience. Tell me what you can do for whoever it is you want to talk to. Yeah, that's what you got to bring in. So for folks or the thing, if you could just kind of really focus on this image, come up with a headline and just a short about, if you can't really go that's a great starting point. Then if you really want to just get crazy, start sharing some content. And see, go ahead. Like I said, LinkedIn Learning has courses that you can take. Again, there are millions of people who've created courses on this. I imagine, I don't think that eCornell probably has a course that's that level, but I think it would be more a larger digital strategy that people could take if they wanted to. But I definitely think that it's just a matter of just getting your toe wet and then going from there, and follow some people who you admire. I've got to tell you, like, if I see a profile that I like, I study it. I'm like, oh, I like how they did that, and I might tweak mine based on that. So it's even just sort of, doing the research. You don't have to obsessively do it, but it's, again, this is your marketing tool. So you want to make sure that it reflects what you want people to know about you, and it will activate them to support you in the way that you want them to support you, and ultimately that you can support them too. So we have come to the end. I'm absolutely happy to answer questions, but I'm also mindful that eCornell is going to kick me out. So here are my 3 commitments for those of you. Connect with me again and share your experience on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and Twitter. I'm at Liz Nganzi. That's one of the accounts that I've got, but let's say to that. Visit our new website, liznganzi.com, to learn about the services I can provide to you, your employees, members, and/or students. And of course, congratulate yourself on investing in your future today. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Your most valuable asset is your time. The fact that you spent this much time with us, and especially those of you who came back for part 2, I really, really am grateful, because I know that you could have been doing something different. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. I want you to now tell me, what are the next steps you're going to take? Because I want, again, what's your home? Like, what are you doing? Let's get you activated. I didn't do all this so that you could be like, oh, that was fun. It was okay. I want you to actually do something. So what are the next steps you're going to take? Share them with me, because if you write them to somebody, then it's kind of like, I actually don't know who you are because this is anonymous, but at least going through that process will make you kind of commit a little bit more to connect to moving forward. So if we can get some answers.
While we're actually taking in those answers, I know we got a little time left, Liz. I wanted to see if I could get a couple audience questions in here. So Tracy actually asked, how can I connect my resume with my story?
Right. So your resume, if you think about different sections of your resume, and I'm a very visual person, but like, you at the top of your resume, you can actually have where you might have like a summary statement, I think is what it's called. I haven't used a resume in so long. A summary statement. So in your summary statement, you can go ahead and put that little summary of your story there. So, I'm a purpose-driven, whatever it may be, person who does XYZ and brings XYZ to the table. So you could put it in there. Again, the things that you choose to highlight that reinforce that purpose. So maybe, again, if you've gotten any sort of awards, any courses you've taken, any sort of, special experience you've received. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but I'm a certified permaculture designer because I learned how to do it in my ashram. Now, not everybody knows it because it's not what I do, but in certain instances, I'll share it because if it's really consistent with whatever it is that the story I'm telling, it's not that I suppress it, it's just not relevant for all audiences. So I think for this person who's thinking about their resume, it's really looking at the different areas that you can highlight. So your accolades, your education, your work experience, interests, and things like that. That's where you can really start pulling out the pieces that really highlight that unique part of who you are and your purpose.
And you spoke a little bit about this in the first hour, but Shantae wants to know, where's a good place to find a mentor?
To find what?
To find a mentor.
A mentor. So it really kind of depends. I don't know what Shantae does. Let's say if you're a business owner, like for me, when I started my first business, I went to the small business development centers, and I always tell the women in my Eve Cornell courses in the Bank of America Institute that they absolutely should think about going to their local small business development center, because they have what are called SCORE mentors. So those are sort of retired executives or business people who volunteers to be kind of mentors to people who are starting their businesses. And I found a lot of value in that. It could be someone that you meet and you really admire, and maybe you reach out to them and you could ask if they'd be willing to mentor you, but mentoring can really vary. So the mentoring could be like, I just want to do a 1 hour call with you and maybe just you can kind of share something with me. It could be I had a mentor who unfortunately passed away 2 years ago, Tom Padula. He was a hotelier, and I met him when I was applying to Cornell, and he was phenomenal. He's my mentor for 30 years. And so my relationship with him was an over a 30-year period, but I only spoke to him probably twice a year, and I saw him maybe once every couple of years. But that 2 hours I would spend talking to him, he would give me amazing nuggets and was really super helpful, and has really informed a lot of what I've done. So there you can have that kind of relationship. I've had sessions where I've just talked to someone one-on-one once, and that was just kind of what was needed. So there are lots of different configurations, but it's usually, reaching out to someone who you admire and or who you feel that you might have a connection with, and asking them, but not only ask them, it's really about reciprocity. And I don't mean that it's a tit for tat. I don't mean in that sense, but a lot of people come to me and ask me to mentor them, and like I may speak to them or I might do something, but it's like they kind of disappear, or they're not even interested in like what I'm interested in. And I'm like, I'm a human being. I'm not a transaction. I'm a person. So, just really understanding how, how you can be of value to the person. I've talked about this with students who say, well, I don't have money to give to someone who mentors me. And it's not about that. But if someone mentors you, maybe if you find out what their interests are, then you might send them an article and say, I was thinking about you, that you do it. I know that you're interested in X, Y, Z. Here's a link to that article or whatever it may be. But understanding that if you're going to have someone mentoring you, they're giving you their time, they're giving you their advice, their experience, and so on and so forth. So you have to be mindful about how you manage that relationship.
And I want to thank everybody on this call. I really, really do. And I appreciate everybody for staying on for this second part. Now, Liz, as an instructor, I do have one last question. Obviously, yes. We're going to give some people some homework, because it wouldn't be an instruction without that. If you could give people that one piece of homework or that one piece of advice that they could take with them as we wrap up here today, what would that one thing be?
So I already made them do the commitments. They were already writing the steps that they're going to take, and I can't wait to read all of this. But here's what I want to tell you. The one thing that I'm all about is community, and I said Ubuntu and interconnectedness. Understand that you aren't in this world alone, and you're not going to be able to move forward alone. Like, see the pandemic, we've learned how much we're interdependent from the pandemic, if there ever was something. So my advice to people is understanding that you have to understand how to develop long-term mutually beneficial relationships with other people. Starting one at a time. It's not like you're going to create this whole sort of tribe of people, but knowing that when you're meeting folks, when you're engaging folks, that you're not just always thinking about what am I going to get out of this, but understand how you can be of service to someone else, how you can do whatever, because there are people who like I've met and like years ago, and I haven't asked them for anything, but maybe I helped them with something, and I asked them 10 years later to help me, and they were willing to, because I'm not a transactional person in that sense, right? So I would say just really understanding that it's important for you to create social capital, and to understand that you're part of a community, and understanding that you have to collaborate with others if you want to move forward, right? So there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So that's what I want to leave people with.
I love that. I love that proverb.
Thank you.
Something to remember. Well, thank you so much, Liz. We really appreciate you taking some time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, audience, for your questions and everything. I apologize if we weren't able to get to your questions. It seemed like me and Liz could talk all day.
I know, but I'm going to go into LinkedIn and into Facebook and respond to questions I can that Nina and Coco weren't able to respond to. And if you write to me I saw that some people had already written to me on LinkedIn and different platforms. I'm happy to connect with you. course, Chris, Nicholas, and Caitlin, thank you. And the whole eCornell team and Cornell, thank you. Thank you to Nina and to Coco. And of course, thank you to all of you for your active participation and giving us your time. And thank you for whatever you're going to create out of this in this world after having been part of this with us. I know this is just part of your journey, but I'm excited to learn about what you do.
Yes, thank you all. And again, this is being recorded and it will be available at the same URL, roughly about 10 minutes after our conversation here today. It just needs to be trimmed down a little bit, but this will be available at the same URL. So if you needed to step out or if you missed the first part or anything like that, please feel free to hop back on that same link there and will be available after. Liz, thank you so much. And again,
thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you again for joining us and have a good rest of your day and have a good rest of your week.
You too. Thanks.